Caroline Colopy. I'm part of the talent branding team here at LinkedIn, and I am super excited to bring to you a session today on how to, some really great tips on how to gain social recruiting momentum when you're in a really conservative environment. We've got two perspectives. We've got one from the banking industry. We've got Chuck Lotz here from First Citizens Bank, and we've also got a perspective from the insurance industry, another kind of traditionally conservative industry, which a lot of you may work in. So we have Caroline Slomsky, who's going to be sharing kind of her learnings and her perspectives on how she's really managed to get some really good social recruiting momentum and support in her organization. So we're going to hold questions until the end. We'll have at least 10 good minutes at the end. You'll go to these mics, one here, one there. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and welcome Chuck up to the stage.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for showing up at 4:15. And Caroline and Aaron and I know that we are standing in between you and a big party or a cocktail or going to have fun. So we are committed to making sure this is exciting. It is exciting, actually, to be up here. My name is Chuck Lotz. I manage the strategic staffing talent acquisition team at First Citizens Bank. Been there for 11 years in that role. And I'd like to give a shout out. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but two members of our team are here. Kathy Woodard is one of our recruiting managers, and Heather Hardister. If you both could stand up real quick. Give a shout out to both of them. They're here to cheer me on, moral support, at least that's what they said coming in. So my hope and Caroline's hope also today is to run through some material to give you some tips and some insight as to what both of our organizations have done to get momentum, social recruiting momentum, in a highly regulated, compliant industry and culture. It may feel like a little bit of a oxymoron, but actually it can be done. And hold the questions for the end. So a little bit about us. First Citizens Bank, we've been in the banking business for 116 years. We are privately controlled. We do have publicly traded stock, but the holding family controls a majority of the voting stock. We are now, after our announced holding company merger on October 1 with our partners in South Carolina, First Citizens South Carolina, we're now a $30 billion bank, or a little north of that, and now one of the largestly privately controlled banks in the United States. We're very conservative, long-term, and relationship-focused, so keep those in mind as I go through some of the material that has actually played into our hands as we've gone down the social recruiting path. So our evolution, it has been an evolution. It's been a journey in the social space. We started in 2008, just simply defined it as action. We started off with LinkedIn, not to make this a LinkedIn love fest, but LinkedIn has become and is our social resource and strategy. In 2011, we moved to a little bit more of what I would call some optimization, and in that time period is actually when our HR compliance organization created a social networking policy. So we do have a social networking, social media policy that does endorse LinkedIn. To fast forward to today, we've moved to more of an understanding where we're leveraging more of the LinkedIn tools and platform elements, such as the gold page, some the work with us ads, those types of things, and we've progressed, but it's taken time. So how did we start? Well, our journey was somewhat of a leap of faith, and I mentioned 2008, we had I would say probably, I think back on it now, a brilliant business development person, Steve Pijak, who I believe is still with LinkedIn. I don't know if he's in this room. Steve, are you in this room? No, he's not in this room. But from a compliance and regulatory perspective, Steve shared with us and with me a couple of really important points that hit home and got us into the LinkedIn product. One was, it is about professionals. So we all know that you find some social-related material on LinkedIn, but it is primarily professional. It's for professionals sharing best practices. Secondly, on the recruitment-centric front, one of the things that he shared with me was getting into the LinkedIn recruiter seat actually put us as the company in control. And those of you in this room who've worked in or who work in regulated industries know that banking, financial services, other regulated industries, we like to be in control. Would you agree? We like to be in control. So the recruiter seat, albeit had a purchase price at the time, which today it's more than it was 6 years ago, gives you control, meaning if somebody leaves, that material, that information, all that content with that seat is yours as the company. In addition to all the other elements that the LinkedIn platform even offered at that time, we were also finding that our talent needs and staffing needs were changing. Back in 2008, 2009, we still had the normal volume in our banking environment of the customer service staff, the tellers, the service representatives in our branches, but we were noticing the need to recruit for more roles in some of those headquarters and knowledge worker skill categories. In addition to the fact that we were finding continuous struggles in just our brand being known in some of the markets that we operate in. The previous slide mentioned we're in 18 different states, so we actually have business out here in California. We have branches down in LA, Orange County, and we also have branches up here in the Northern California area, Sacramento and Folsom. Anybody here bank with us? I'm the only one? Wow. So we have some upside, right? That's good. All right. Just know we're here. We're in California. We're based in Raleigh. So in case if you're looking to look at any banking alternatives, just look for First Citizens Bank in some of those markets I mentioned. So, and we have become, from a recruitment team and talent acquisition group, we have basically become the social strategy resource. And we've brought some partners along the way, and I'll touch on that in just a minute. One of the things that's also started to help us get some momentum and credibility is to share data and progress. Those of you who've been at the conference here for a couple days have probably been to some of the sessions around data and insights. Do we hear a theme, a drumbeat? So we have leveraged that with our LinkedIn platform, the beauty of that platform being the ability to provide you with insights and data. Now, some of this is related to more of our career site. You'll see, dating back to 2011, a lot of the progress and uptick has been related to our proliferation on LinkedIn, and we've also gotten into Twitter a little bit, and I'll touch on that in a couple minutes. The 2014 year-to-date stats you see on the far right, those are as of mid-September. So with our career site visitors, we're tracking to an annualized rate of about 850,000 career site visitors. So you've seen a nice uptick there. In the social graph there, the majority of that increase has been through LinkedIn. When I was at the First Talent Connect conference in 2010, we had 1,456 followers. I wrote that down in a little folder. I didn't write it in LinkedIn. I wrote it on a piece of paper in a folder. Can you believe that? 1,456 followers. We are now north of 12,000. So we're getting our brand out there, but it takes time. And we also started to educate and involve some of our partners. What I would suggest to you is with some of your partners in crime, such as marketing communications folks, even compliance, legal, your human resources partners, even our information technology, information security folks, take the opportunity to educate them proactively. Don't wait for them to start asking you questions. Bring them into success that you're starting to see from a talent acquisition standpoint and start sharing that. They'll appreciate that. It will build credibility. And then when you get to places where you need them, there are already some awareness. With marketing communications, they have been probably our best partner. One of the adjectives I use, I've been probably with our marketing group over the last 6 or 7 years, what I would call a diplomatic irritant. I just continue to bug them from the standpoint of, we need your help, because it is about our brand. And they've been great to move along with us to a place today where we are in cadence with them about sharing updates, sharing information about our company news and information on the LinkedIn platform, and then potentially looking at other platforms. We've also been able to leverage our talent acquisition success to start sharing the power of the LinkedIn platform from a business standpoint. How many of you have salespeople in your organizations? So we have lenders, bankers, right? Something happened in 2011. I went to the LinkedIn conference in Las Vegas, and I took the opportunity to visit our California market, which, being based in Raleigh, we're a centralized team. So we don't necessarily go out and do a lot of market visits and travel. We do all of our work based in Raleigh. So I met with 4, what I would call branch executive leadership. They didn't know I was coming necessarily from the LinkedIn conference, but all 4 of them, to a T, the first 5 minutes of the conversation, they started asking me about LinkedIn and talking about it. And I said, what was the context of the conversation? Oh, well, we are talking about it in our sales meetings as a prospecting and business development resource. The fact that we had had so much success from a recruitment standpoint, we were then able to take that information, went back to Raleigh, brought in some of the partners that I shared earlier, and we created what I would call a de facto social media task team, which was basically people that I went and asked and said, hey, do you want to be a part of this? It kind of makes sense. And they said, yeah, makes sense. And we created some education. So our LinkedIn recruiting consultant at the time helped us put together a LinkedIn 101 and 102 training. 101 was, what's a good LinkedIn profile? What are the elements you want to have? 102 went into looking at more of the sales and business development aspects. And we targeted that training on the sales folks in commercial and business banking roles in our California footprint. So at least we could provide them some guidance and education. Again, fortunately, we leveraged our recruiting success to then bring some credibility and expertise to help the business. Because as all you know, we don't have any work to do in recruiting and staffing unless there's customers and business happening out there in our companies, and it's growing. So I like being in that place proactively versus somebody having to come to me and say, have you thought about this? So have courage. If you are in the recruiting talent acquisition world now, you've got to have courage to test things out. We've talked about the use of the word pilot. How many of you do pilots? Isn't that kind of a safe way to go about? We're going to pilot this, which means if it doesn't work, we're not going to do it anymore. If it does work, we're just going to keep going. We're going to expand. Have courage to try things out, experiment. Give yourself the ability to experiment. That's what we did. Now, fortunately, 6 years ago when Steve made his points, think about it. At that point in time, nobody really knew a lot about LinkedIn. Now, today, for those of you maybe looking at the platform, if you're not on it already from a talent acquisition standpoint, you probably have a little bit more of a challenge because there's more understanding, there's more awareness of what it can do, but also what some of the risks might be. It can be amazing and simple. You can get amazing results. LinkedIn can help you track and share those. They'll give you the data that you need. Our account rep, Kim Dean, earlier this morning gave us our data sheet on our TBI, Talent Brand Index, our influencing, our followers. It's great to be able to have a partner like LinkedIn that can provide you that information without you having to go through 3 weeks of training on how to get a report done. So key takeaways: you're a marketer or a salesperson, you're just selling employment opportunities, act like one. Involve and educate your internal partners. Be proactive about that. That can really help you. Share data and progress. I think we've all heard that today. Figure out what data your company is interested in looking at. If it's banking, if it's insurance, that's what you want to bring to the table. And have courage. And what I will leave you with also, who was at the Talent Connect conference last year? Those of you there, you remember the Fred Kaufman Conscious Business? So you have an opportunity to be a victim or a player. Who wants to be a victim? Wow, nobody raised their hand. That's good. You guys are... Who wants to be a player? So this is your opportunity to be a player. So your company needs you, even if you're in a regulated industry or company, your company needs you to test these things out, to get some momentum. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Caroline. Have a great rest of the conference.
Thanks, Chuck. All right. So hi, everybody. I'm Caroline Slomski. I am the Employment Brand Manager at Liberty Mutual Insurance. So first, let's kind of level set. Yes, we have an employment brand team, and there are 3.5 of us. We have a senior marketing specialist. We have the privilege of having a data analyst for marketing analytics, and we also typically have somebody on rotation who comes to assist us as part of our HR development program. So I just want to say yes, we do have an employment brand team, but prior to coming to Liberty Mutual 3 years ago, I worked for 2 different recruitment marketing agencies, NAS Recruitment Communications and TMP Worldwide. And during that time, I worked with a number of clients, big and small. So I feel very confident that the tips we're going to share today are applicable regardless of your size. Another point that I want to start off with is just in recognition of the combination of a risk-averse insurance company or a conservative company and social media. So the two seem to be very much in juxtaposition with each other, and in fact, they really complement each other because social media really can be very point in time, very spontaneous, while the same is not true of an insurance company that has built its success on being able to look back at what happened and carefully predict the future. And when you combine the two, what I've found is that it means that your social media strategy has to be built and presented to those who have that conservative mindset. You have to have a plan, you have to have data, you have to be thoughtful in your approach. That just means you're going to have a better social media strategy. So the fact of the matter is that those of us in a conservative, regulated industry are actually better positioned when we launch a social recruiting strategy to be more successful because we had to plan all of that out. So all of those conversations that you have to have, they will be worthwhile in 2 years when you actually get to launch it. So let me tell you first about Liberty Mutual Insurance. We are currently number 76 on the Fortune 100. We have roughly 50,000 employees globally, and that translates to about 35,000 here domestically. And that means we do about 6,000 hires here in the US every year. Now, the important thing to note is that of those 6,000 hires, almost 70% of them come from outside the insurance industry. So it's going to be a really important takeaway. Before we can talk about social media as part of our talent acquisition strategy, I want to talk to you about our talent acquisition funnel. And what you see here, the awareness, interest, and desire, is a really traditional consumer marketing approach that we've applied to our talent marketing strategy. So our awareness is typically good. So who has heard, I hope this goes better than the banking check, who has heard of Liberty Mutual or Safeco? Okay, great. Keep your hands up. All right, now be honest with me. Who wants to work for an insurance company? Keep your hands up. That's about what our candidate population typically says. So, interest is what we are driving at when we are using social media as our strategy. So our key promise to our business stakeholders is that we will put out social communications, and I should level set, we're really talking primarily about LinkedIn and Twitter. We do dabble a little bit in Facebook, but truthfully, all those algorithm changes are getting to be a pain, and I am not willing to pay for all of the eyeballs. So, sorry, Facebook. We communicate to our business stakeholders that what we're trying to accomplish is to help move more people through the funnel, to move them from, yeah, I know about Liberty Mutual, to, yeah, I'd consider working there, instead of, I don't think so. We do really amazing work. You know, when you touch our product, you've probably crashed your car, or your business might have flooded. Or maybe you have a worker who's gone out on disability because they dropped something on themselves. So it's really awesome things that means that you interact with the product that you've purchased through us. However, when you stop and think back, insurance is really what makes the world turn. I know it's really money, but then it's insurance, because we have to anticipate what global change is going to be by looking back and seeing the changes, and be able to understand what the risk could be coming down the pipeline and communicate that to our customers. We have to look at how we can get, you know, claims checks into the hands of our policyholders faster while keeping our employees safe, and that might be through you know, the use of drones, so that our employees are not out on icy rooftops in the middle of winter, but we're able to resolve claims faster. There's really interesting work that happens, but if we don't talk about it, everybody just equates us with fender benders. So that's really where we've been focusing a lot. Now, the latest journey in our social media strategy has been primarily in the last 2 years. So if I looked back in 2012, and these are approximate numbers, about 75% of what we were pushing out on LinkedIn and Twitter and on Facebook at the time, before they stopped showing our stuff, was job posts, you know? But when we go back to that, that would mean that we're really talking about desire. Like, you know, we're communicating out a job, and you are expressing your desire through the application process. And we know that's really not the challenge. It's awareness to interest. And so this year, we took a very deliberate approach to change the shift. So we are talking a lot more about our culture. We're talking about what it's like to work here, and tossing in some job opportunities, but even the job opportunity posts have changed. So no longer do we just have, you know, the random posts of we are hiring and using all of the hashtags for IT and Java and Portsmouth and, you know, going up for crazy long search strings. We're using pictures. So we'll ask a manager in a division that's hiring high volume, like our claims, where the position, we have a lot of claims positions open, and so we'll ask them for a couple of star performers. And we'll spend 15 minutes on the phone with them. What do you really like about your job? What motivates you? Why did you choose Liberty if you're a recent new hire? What do you find really fulfilling, and why do you stay? And from that, we'll come up with 3 or 4 different quotes. We'll ask the employee to send in a picture. They love it. We tell them when it goes live, then they share, then their mom shares. We go see how it goes from there. But that has really helped increase the return on even the job posts that we've put out there. Beyond that, we will look for hashtags that are relevant to our business. So bring your manners to work day. We have a principle at Liberty Mutual that we treat everybody with dignity and respect. So bring their manners to work day fits perfectly. So we go ahead and we look for those little holidays. National Fluffernutter Day. Anybody know what a Fluffernutter is? It's awesome. It's Wonder Bread, and it's fluff, which is basically melted marshmallow, and peanut butter. It happens to be the state sandwich of Massachusetts. Liberty Mutual is headquartered in Massachusetts. Totally relevant, so we put that out there. But we also look for our employees who are talking about us, because as much as we want to share what it's like, we know that our employees will do a better job. And I will take a minute to say we don't have yet a formal employee ambassador program. That's something that we're working on, but we haven't launched it because we haven't finished that 2-year journey between compliance and legal and HR and all of the explanations. But I think we're getting closer. But when an employee goes ahead and tweets out a picture of a cookie that our personal insurance group passed out to all of the employees when they made it to the top 5 personal lines carriers, that's great. Now they tweeted and mentioned Liberty Mutual in there. That's fair game. We retweet that. It's great, it's authentic, and it gives us some credibility too. When we're planning out our content strategy, we use our employment value propositions to keep us honest, because it can get a little crazy with all of those holidays, and pretty soon we could easily migrate towards more fluffernutter posts than bring your manners to work day if we weren't careful and if we didn't track it. So we take our value proposition pillars, the 5 of which you see here, and for each piece of social media content we put out there, we'll map it back or tag it with one of the pillars. We have changed our strategy this year slightly to enhance our understanding of the candidates and the gaps in internal and external perception. So we'll take the data that CEB puts out, Universum, we do our independent study to understand what candidates are looking for in the marketplace right now. And we'll come back and make sure that our 5 employment value proposition pillars are still relevant in those top 10. From there, we take the pillars and we map them back to our employee opinion survey. Say, okay, well, it's still relevant to our external audience. Is it still true internally? Okay, great. So far, so good, and it's been true. Next, we take our external perspective, because that shows us where we need to concentrate. And this year, what we found was that we had the largest gaps between internal perception and external perception in interesting work, shocking, I know, and integrity. And so we said, okay, well, this is actually a great opportunity for us, because we just haven't communicated enough about those 2 proposition pillars. We just have to ramp it up. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about one of these examples for a content strategy and give you some points to tell you how we go through our planning process. And it's all around the hashtag LMILead, Liberty Mutual Insurance Leadership Forum. So related to interesting work, every year we bring in 100 rising sophomores in late June, bring them into Boston to talk to them about Liberty Mutual, give them some professional development training, talk to them about the insurance industry, and in general, educate them on what they could expect, because it's a pipeline into our internship program, which proves to be very successful pipelines into entry-level positions. So we did things a little bit differently, a little bit more deliberately this year on social media. The first thing was that we communicated this hashtag everywhere. And I don't know if anybody has noticed this in-talent hashtag that's been floating around for the last couple of days or months on every piece of communication that's come out from this conference specifically. That's all it takes. You're going to be sending them out logistics on where to go and where to stay and how to get reimbursed. So just make a mention in there. You're already sending out the communications. Say, By the way, when you're at the event, don't forget, use LMI Lead as a hashtag. Communicate with us, communicate with others. We did some pre-event engagement that we initiated from our brand channels. We just did top 5 reasons we're excited for Leadership Forum. And we started on our Twitter channels, and we did the countdown. From there, we posed challenge questions. Now, some of these came in the form of the pre-event communications. So we let them know, send a picture or tweet a picture using the hashtag of your trip into Boston. Got great pictures. From there, take a picture of the first person you met. After that, during the sessions, we'd say, today's contest, tweet a picture of yourself on a duck boat, little selfie, duck boat selfies. Bonus points if you get a Boston landmark in the background. And we incentivize the students a little bit. I mean, all you have to do is give them a candy bar and they'll pretty much do anything. So it wasn't even that expensive. And then we monitored the hashtags, we retweeted, we favorited, they loved it, and our recruiters got involved as well. Now, once the event was done, we had hundreds of tweets. 400, 500 tweets with that hashtag that had originated from those students. We picked 12, put them on a web page. From there, when we sent a thank you note to the students saying it was so great to meet you, we added a link to that page, but now it's going to be a link that we'll be able to use next year as part of our marketing to get others to encourage them to apply. And there's a link right there to all of the tweets. So although we only grabbed 12, because that's all that really looked good on the page, the full index tweets are all there for them to understand what it would be like and move them from aware of the program to interested in having as much fun as those other students have and showcasing their desire in applying for the program. So our results. We've seen great results so far. So you can see Q1 of 2012, not so great results. But as we've moved our content strategy over, we've also shifted expectations in what we're getting. So no longer am I asked to prove out how many hires we make out from Twitter, because I think it's like 3. It's not the point of Twitter. So not everything is about making a hire. This was about getting people interested, and we see interest as engagement. So if you are liking, sharing, retweeting, any of those social interactions, that counts as an engagement, and it shows the increased interest in working for us. So that engagement is what you see on the red line. What's been really amazing is the reach. So now we can say that our social media strategy isn't only just helping us to move people from awareness to interest, it's also increasing awareness. Because as people are interacting with our brand, their peers who are friends with them on social media are seeing those interactions. We have advocacy there, and in turn, they are going to move more quickly down the funnel. So now our quarterly reach hovers somewhere between 2 and 2.5 million. So my takeaways for you. Be clear and consistent on what your expectations, what your business's expectations should be, and why you're using social media. Again, it's not necessarily about hires. What behavior do you need to change? Where's the gap in your ability to recruit great talent? And can social media help you fulfill and close that gap? Build a thoughtful and thorough content strategy. This is not hard. It simply takes a little bit of time and planning. We had the LMI Lead business case that I showed you. We had our marketing specialist manage that with our summer intern. That gave her fantastic results for her resume. She's a marketing major at Bentley University. That's some real business applicability there, and she was fantastic. It was somebody working with her peers. And so them going through that and executing it and clearly communicating to the business, this is what's going to happen next, really helped. Guiding and engaging with your audience. This is the whole expectation. If you have a hashtag that you've made, you best tell somebody about that hashtag. They're not going to find it on their own. Let them know how you want them to interact with you. Give them questions. Lead by example, and help them along the way, because it's really you who have something to gain. You know what gap that is that you're trying to close, and so let them know what you're looking for. And lastly, share meaningful metrics that clearly communicate your success. Right now, we have that interest pretty well established with what we have, and now we're even seeing generation of awareness. From here, we are trying to figure out what's the overall influence. And so that's going to be the work for the rest of this year, and seeing how much our social media metrics matter, but seeing what we're getting in return, it's already fantastic, so we're already thrilled. So, thank you.
Thank you so much to Caroline and to Chuck. We're now going to be ready to take some of your questions. Please come up. There's a mic on both aisles. So if you've got a question for either of these two, please don't be shy and come on up. No questions? One right here.
I'm Molly from Cambridge Associates in Boston. Go Fluffernutters. So my question is, my company's kind of conservative, very conservative, and they don't want to help people with their LinkedIn profiles because they assume then they're more marketable to outside of the firm. How have you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, we get that too. How many people think they're going to be, just picked off as soon as they go out there? The fact of the matter is, and we've, you've heard it before, and we say it a lot internally. It's out there. It's happening already, and we would rather play a part in that and give the employees tools, so helping them understand, the message that we want to put out there, helping them understand how they could connect to how the industry even triggers certain content on there. So it's just been more about education and monitoring. Understanding the tools that LinkedIn does pass out will show how many people, how many people are being impacted. I know our employees' profiles, that's the #1 thing that's looked at from our company on LinkedIn. And if we haven't taken the steps to help the employee understand how they could position Liberty Mutual better, then we're missing that marketing opportunity. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Chuck, how about you? How do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. The response I've typically given on that is, if our employees are going to be recruited, them being on LinkedIn isn't necessarily going to, quote unquote, enable that to happen. There's this thing called the phone that Lou Adler talked about yesterday. The actual functionality of that Apple device that recruiters can actually get to people through that mechanism, or their friends, their network. So we kind of flip it. I think Caroline's right. You make it more about the brand. So what if you had more employees on the platform? Think about some of the things that Reed mentioned this morning about network intelligence and information. You can actually empower your workforce more so. So in a way, if you can flip the table a little bit, you got to flip the mindset. But you have to keep doing that. It doesn't sink in the first time. But there are managers out there, leaders, that understand that, and you try and identify those, and they can help spread that message. But we're in the same place. We don't provide a lot of overt, intentional, okay, every 2 weeks you can sign up. Now one of our partners in our HR organization, our learning and training group, they have taken that 101 and 102 training from 2 years ago, refreshed it, and it's now in our learning gateway as a component of our basic sales training for some of our professionals. That's progress. And that also means that more are likely going to be on it.
Okay, my first question is for Caroline. You showed that graph Where did all that data come from? What program?
The social metrics. So we use a couple of different tools. So we do use Hearsay Social. Our recruiters all have a content management system. We put the content in the library and they use it through there. We also use Sprinkler on the company side. However, I will say one network in particular, LinkedIn, doesn't necessarily feed all of their data into that, and so we pull it manually. Yeah.
My second question is for both of you guys. I work at one of the country's top 20, I'll say, accounting and consulting firms, and my firm was a bit smaller. We just merged in recently with a bigger firm, and the previous firm that I worked for, we were really active in social. We really had started to engage everyone from a recruiting standpoint, demonstrating all the community service, everything. We had a lot of YouTube videos, and come the merger, the bigger firm was not very active at all, and they pretty much just shut down all of our channels. And the chief marketing officer and everyone else I've spoke with in marketing so far has been very much, oh, we're still researching the ROI. You know, that's what you should tell people that ask you what happened to the social channels. And obviously, you know, just meeting someone that's your new boss, you don't want to push the buttons on anything. So in the meantime, in the last couple of weeks, I've received tons of pictures from people that are like, oh, you know, for the social channels, and I've had to be like, we don't do that anymore. The recruiters are sending me the colleges that they're attending. I'm like, we don't post that anymore. And they're going crazy, like, oh, the college students usually find out where we're going to be because of Twitter. So I'm just looking for, you know, what you think would be the best strategy to approach. Should I get someone else? Should I get HR to approach them? Should I get someone else, you know, some of the partners or the people that were really engaged to make the case for us?
I'd get your cape on. Yeah, get your cape and your crash helmet, right? I think the partners, if you can identify some people internally, that's a tough spot. The only other thing, and Caroline chime in too, is you have competitors, right? You have direct competitors that you're trying to probably win business from. Socialize with the key folks and what they're doing. Because likely, I don't know, likely they're doing some things that you used to do.
Right.
So how are you going to keep up with the competition for talent and for business? That might get your CMO's attention a little bit. I don't know.
I'd also just use voice of the customer. That's really big at Liberty Mutual, voice of the customer. So if we have a business group that has a tool that's been removed and they are seeing a decline in the booth traffic, that's data right there that shows, you know, this is what we got last year. This is the engagement we have with the students. This is what the campus team is seeing this year. The only thing that's changed is that the Twitter handle's gone, or the Facebook page is gone. And so it elevates the criticality of that.
I think that's a good point. Caroline said the voice of the customer is take the business, strip the recruitment piece out of it, and just say from a business perspective, this is where people are going to get information, to research your organization, your company. They may be a business that could be interested in making a decision about doing business with your company. So I think if maybe you bring the broader opportunity in, then you make some progress there, chip away at that ice. And then the talent piece might be just a no-brainer. I know that sounds easier, but we'll be happy to connect with us, and if you have other thoughts or want to engage in follow-up conversation, we'd be happy to.
Sounds good, thank you.
Let's go to the other mic.
Hi, my name's Teresa. I'm with Sephora, and while we are not usually considered a conservative company, we are owned by LVMH, which is headquartered in Paris. And so our global partners are much more conservative than we are here in the States. And so this may be directed more towards you, Caroline, with Liberty being more global. But how have you worked with your talent acquisition partners and other areas of the world that are a little bit more conservative than we are here? Are you all on one team, or how do you work together?
Yeah, we're not one team, and so we're right on that brink of global. It's very multinational right now, and our global entities still operate under their in-country names, so they don't even operate as Liberty Mutual, which poses another set of challenges. And then when we look at the profile or the structure of those organizations, often there's one HR person who's doing the role of everything from marketer to generalist to recruiter and everything. I'm sure that feels very close to home. So we share a lot of information on, information that you've seen here, the thought process as to why, guiding them along a plan. We've certainly connected a lot of our global partners and tried to bring them into our LinkedIn community. So LinkedIn has those in-country specialists. That's been very helpful. They're earlier in their journey with Twitter and LinkedIn, but sharing the strategy and the thought process behind them has helped take some of the scary out of it.
Okay, let's go over here.
Yep. So along a similar vein, talking about the social media piece, is that I work for a conservative company that doesn't really allow the everyday employee to kind of use social media. So my question is really two parts. Is one, how do I really convince the key stakeholders to kind of lift that? And the other part is, how do I engage my employees until that point, until that time, to really contribute and be a part of it?
Yeah, similar to the previous look at from a business standpoint, I'm sure every company has their risk appetite, so you might start with asking some questions around, well, why not? I don't know, maybe you've already gone down that path. Why don't they? What are the reasons for that decision? It's got to be coming from somewhere. Somebody inside the company made the decision to say, we're not going to allow people to do this. I think one of the hooks that got us involved in LinkedIn was back to the fact that it was professional. This is not about people going out to ESPN or Fox News or CNN and consuming information and not being productive. Actually, it could be quite the opposite, in that people might be able to be more productive. If you go back to the premise that Reid Hoffman founded LinkedIn on, was more around business best practice and information sharing. So again, bringing the business thought process into it. But I would start asking some questions versus being frustrated. Just start doing your own polling and find out the why behind it, and then maybe you can frame up your solution approach
I think
that way.
It's our approach that if people are going to waste time, they're going to figure out how to do it. It's not necessarily that they're super productive until they get Facebook. They're going to be talking at the water cooler or finding a different way. So it's just another method. And I don't know, to go to the pilot idea.
Go to the pilot.
If there's a population that has very measurable business results that can be clearly tested with access to Facebook, without access to Facebook, or before and after, it's sometimes one of those opportunities to take that. And then in terms of the employee, the other thing would be see what you can find. So I don't know how many of your employees are already on LinkedIn, the percentage population, but if it's north of 20%, they're already out there, and you could be inviting them and encouraging them more. So testing out might be worthwhile.
So is the issue, or you cannot, as an employee, be on or use these networks or tools, but if somebody's at home on their personal, they're okay.
Right, they can, but it's one of those situations where you want to try and avoid and not have them do it in their own personal life, in their own personal time, where they have to do something additionally on top of their day-to-day task, where it's something they should be able to accomplish while on the job.
Right. Yeah.
You can get legal involved too, because with us, if you look at any sort of non-exempt population, if they feel like it would be better for their role to be on LinkedIn and they have to do that after hours, is that an angle you can take?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. I think, Chuck, that you'd mentioned earlier that your company uses the LinkedIn Gold page.
Yes, we just went up from the silver. We went silver to gold
Right.
this year.
I guess I was curious how you were implementing that Gold page and if you'd seen success doing so.
Yeah, we have not had a chance yet. Let's see, we went up on gold back in April. We had great support from our LinkedIn team in terms of best practices. We had a few conference calls. We knew the why, so we got a lot of help from the LinkedIn team in terms of best practices. The five pages that how we need to think about it from our business. So we have the default page. Wealth management is a business that we're focusing quite a bit on, so that's another page. Information technology with Kathy and her team supports. That's a huge staffing challenge for us today, so that was another one. And then we have our traditional branch page. So we have actually a fifth slot that we are trying to finalize building out with the early career campus recruiting. And we actually did our first videos, thanks to Kathy and some of her driving. We captured some interns, and we actually will have some video content for the first time. So we'll be able to leverage some of that with our Gold.
Yeah, I asked because at Goodyear, we're trying to use those pages in a geographical way.
Right.
So I'm always curious to see how other people are doing it. So it sounds like it's more of a business branching out.
And the nice thing about the way those pages work is you can change them out. I mean, the beauty is you own the content on those career pages, and if we decide next year that we wanted to earmark a page for something else, we can make changes to it. But yeah, we did take a business focus. Yep.
Thank you.
And we see, so from the LinkedIn side, we see clients using, obviously, them the way that Chuck is around business functions, as well as geographies, or a combination of both, pretty interchangeably and pretty actively. So they work really well to target people either way.
And as part of the upgrade to the Gold, there are targeted impressions that you get as part of that package, which we're now just starting to use. So instead of having to do a separate targeted campaign and pay for that, we've actually got some of that built into that Gold page package. So that was nice. We just now need to leverage it, and then we need to track our results.
This question's for both of you. Again, come from a conservative company. 3/4 of our employees are outside salespeople, and we work in an industrial market, so some of our outside salespeople are not necessarily so professional at all times. So one of the things that I would like to do is incorporate a lot of these salespeople out there and try to involve them in what we're doing from a social media standpoint and to be those brand ambassadors. The problem I'm running into is our legal department and our senior management is afraid that maybe some of our top performers may go online and say something that they shouldn't say, and it ends up costing them their job, and then it costs our company a top performer at the same time.
Yeah, we have some of those issues. Not the firing of employees or anything like that, but we've put some measures in place that have helped put some control and mitigate the risk. So our sales force is also online, our personal lines, and they have Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts. And we've adopted that same platform for our recruiters. What we've told the business is that we will create content that they can share. So we push it through a platform. We use Hearsay Social, Q Social is another one, if you've looked at it, QUE, to help push the content, and then you can control how much of it is editable. And from there, you can control what the message is that goes out while still enabling them to be social. And that's been our baby step into having all of the recruiters and all of the salespeople out communicating on behalf of the business. And as we see those results and as we can tie it back to prove out whether or not it's necessary, because that's the other step too, right? We don't want them just out there selling people or jobs or products if it's not helpful. So we push that content out and we're tracking it back. And then the system also allows us to understand, what content is performing best. And if that doesn't go back to the root cause of what we're trying to solve, we'll either change the content or we may end up canceling the program.
Caroline, do you combine that with any kind of training for those people as well?
Yeah, we do. So we talk about, we get very, granular. What is Twitter? What is a retweet? Where to put the handle? Don't put it in front, put it in the middle. All of those little tips and tricks that make a difference in the reach and the visibility of every message that goes out. We do a lot of training with LinkedIn, and Stephanie Hurst is a bomb. So if you haven't worked with her, I can suggest it. Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted to ask briefly, I come from a conservative law firm in Sydney, and just wanted to ask very briefly about your diversity initiatives as part of your talent and brand social media strategy. If you could, I know we're not talking about that specifically today, excuse me, but I just wanted to hear from a bank and an insurance company how you guys tackle that.
We don't, right now, we don't have any what I would call a diversity initiative. Right now, we manage from the standpoint of looking at affirmative action, and our hope is with LinkedIn as we continue to progress from the recruitment side is looking at opportunities to help us progress against areas where we have opportunities. We're seeing now some new regulation that's coming out related to veterans as well as people with disabilities. That's kind of an area of, wow, we're going to be held to some new standards going forward, and hopefully we can start working with our, in this case, our LinkedIn rep, and how we might be able to look at communities or organizations and representation on LinkedIn and other areas to help us make sure that we're making progress in those areas. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but we don't have any company initiatives in that. We try and build that into the fundamental fabric of how we go about recruitment. Our team is focused on making sure that we provide candidate pools that are diverse. Yes. And we also do that when we engage with outside third-party agencies from time to time, that we require that they present a diverse slate of candidates to us.
Yeah. We do have some formal diversity and inclusion metrics that we're measuring against. With social, the demographic information of our followers or those on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook is somewhat limited. So we have a pretty good idea for gender divide, but not around ethnicity. So we can't necessarily say if it's shifting, but we do use social to augment our presence at a diversity conference. So for instance, if we're going to the National Black MBA conference, we will make sure that we understand their handle, their hashtag. We'll engage a few days prior. We'll engage afterwards. We'll communicate that out so that every diversity initiative where we're going out also has a social component to it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and we're going to take this one last question.
I work at UC Berkeley. Go Bears. It's a very conservative faculty and administration.
It's a trend,
so
this conservatism.
How did you get the technology adverse senior leadership who don't have a LinkedIn profile? How did you get them to buy in and to start using it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
They don't have a LinkedIn profile. Sounds like a 101 opportunity. I don't know, my suggestion would be back to the gentleman a couple minutes ago is ask why not. Is look at where people in business are going to get information and network, and there may be some people in that faculty that maybe they came from other places. I don't know if this is common in the university realm, or if maybe this is unique to Berkeley itself.
It's a generational thing, I'd say.
It's a generational, okay.
So you have a lot of newers that come into campus, they're into it. But you have some people at the top who've been at the campus for a long time that are a little adverse, a little scared of it.
What's that senior faculty, what are their business objectives?
universal access for students?
Start there.
Yeah.
Where are students going to get information? I think campus, college students, that community is one of the fastest growing
Well done, Chuck. Well done.
demographics.
Yeah. So we've got over 40 million students on LinkedIn. A lot of people aren't aware of that. A lot of leadership is not aware of that. We can definitely arm you with a ton of data to go in and kind of make a case for why LinkedIn, as well as other social platforms, are a really powerful place to engage students. That doesn't sound like it's the issue here necessarily. It's more about your kind of leadership team not getting it or not being really bought in. We also have a bunch of really powerful data around the influence that a socially engaged kind of leadership team can have on a business's competitive perception, on their revenue, on a lot of business metrics that are not related to recruiting. So we can load you up with a bunch of good stuff
If I
and maybe
can
partner with you.
add to it, Erin, you might want to consider not releasing your faculty, but getting different people. So we've found that it's really difficult to change that behavior, and if somebody is just not technically inclined, it can get there, but it's never going to be great. And maybe all it takes is, a favorited tweet or a retweet to get some positive reinforcement. So it could be that you have somebody crafting the content, somebody scheduling the content on behalf of that professor, and if they see the positive results, that's one way to go about it, and then they can adopt it. The other could be, is there somebody else that you can tap, whether that was, a graduate student or just fewer members of the faculty instead of all of the faculty who could make just as much of an impact. We saw the same with our recruiters. So all of the recruiters were being told, let's go to Twitter. But we didn't want to put them on there if we didn't set them up for success with the content, the training, and the metrics to prove out whether or not it was necessary. And it could very well be that we get down to it, and out of 115 in our recruiting community, we might only need 10, because those are the real influencers. So maybe there are some different people, and it's taking that approach too.
You can do that pilot approach.
The pilot.
With a couple of them, because you can get on LinkedIn, but guess what? You can get off. Yeah. You can stop, you can shut down your profile. So maybe you take a little mini pilot approach with it. Maybe there's a couple of them that actually might be open-minded to doing something and being on it for 90 days. And then saying, okay, do you want to continue? And so that might be it.
Okay, well with that, I'm going to
Great stuff.
thank Caroline and Chuck. Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Thank you all for attending, and have a good evening.